What would you do if your last chance to save your family meant stepping out of the shadows and into the lion's den? If speaking up could mean $27,000, but also public humiliation? Would you risk everything for a moment that might change your life forever? Stay with us, and tell us in the comments. Would you reveal a secret that could cost you your dignity or win you your future? Lucille Brooks froze mid-polish as billionaire tech magnate Maxwell Grant waved a Mandarin language document above his executive board. Her secret fluency throbbed like a pulse in her throat, restrained but burning. Anyone who can translate this proposal from Hangzhou Tech gets my salary for the day. That's $27,400, Maxwell said dryly, nudging Lucille's cleaning cart aside with the heel of his Italian leather shoes. Laughter erupted across the conference table. Executives shot each other smug glances, relishing the moment. Lucille kept her gaze low, hand moving in tight circles across the mahogany finish. Maybe we should just throw it into Google Translate, joked Derek Martin, VP of Operations. The ring from his Harvard class clinked against his crystal water glass. Probably more accurate than whatever bargain bin service we'd hire. Lucille's phone buzzed in her apron pocket. A reminder, 72 hours until the final eviction hearing. Her family's future hung by a thread, and $27,000 was the exact sum keeping them teetering between shelter and the street. Her fingers closed around the translator pen she always kept close. It was jade, smooth, carved with delicate Chinese characters. A gift from her father. A secret skill. A denied heritage. And now a potential lifeline. But revealing who she really was to the very people who barely noticed her existence. Was it salvation or another path to shame? She quietly slipped from the room, unseen yet again, while the question echoed behind her like fate. Lucille hadn't always been invisible. 15 years earlier, she'd been the sharp-eyed, multilingual 8-year-old who left teachers awestruck with her effortless transitions between English, Mandarin, and Spanish. Her Chinese mother, Maid, had met her Dominican father, Raphael, during a student exchange in Boston. Their love transcended cultures, united by their shared obsession with languages and education. Words are the bridges between worlds, Raphael would whisper as he guided Lucille's hand across pages filled with dancing characters and vibrant meaning. By the age of 10, Lucille could serve as a translator between her Chinese grandparents and Dominican relatives, earning proud smiles from both sides of the family. Her prized possession? A jade pen gifted on her 13th birthday. Cool, smooth, and inscribed with the words, "Knowledge illuminates." The scent of sandalwood still lingered on it, a memory of long afternoons in her father's study. This belonged to a scholar, he told her. Now it belongs to another. But 3 months later, Raphael was out of a job, laid off from Grant Enterprises during what they called a strategic restructuring. He'd spent 15 years building their Asian market strategies, only to be discarded with a severance package barely covering 2 months' rent. Overnight, their health insurance vanished. That persistent cough? It was stage 4 lung cancer. And soon, the medical bills stacked higher than the job rejections. Lucille remembered the night he came home pale from yet another interview. "They won't hire me," he'd whispered to May. "Max Grant blacklisted me. Says I know too much." 6 months later, Raphael was gone. In his place, $43,000 in debt, a grieving daughter, and a jade pen that Lucille now carried like both armor and weight. May took on 3 housekeeping gigs to keep them afloat. Her engineering degree from Beijing University meant nothing without U.S. credentials. Lucille? She abandoned her senior year when May suffered her first stroke. Her dreams of a linguistic scholarship disappeared that day. Now 23, Lucille's life was a brutal rhythm, cleaning offices at Grant Enterprises from 4 p.m. to midnight, tending to her partially paralyzed mother until dawn, sleeping for 3 hours, then translating research papers online under a pseudonym, Linguistic Bridge, from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Translation paid better, $22 per hour, but was inconsistent, and using her real name would jeopardize her only link to health coverage. 60 hours a week. And every month, the math of survival broke down like this. $1,200 for rent on a cramped 1-bedroom apartment. $463 for May's medication. $275 for the medical debt payment. $190 for groceries. $145 for utilities. There was never anything left. For 5 years, Lucille moved like a ghost through Grant Enterprises, emptying trash bins while overhearing billion-dollar decisions. She made herself invisible, but her ears caught everything. She knew Maxwell Grant had slashed retirement benefits to fund his $14 million Aspen estate. She knew Derek Martin had stolen the Singapore expansion plan from a junior analyst named Priya Chandra. She knew the company's public diversity statements were paper-thin. The maintenance team was 87% non-white. The executive team? 94% white. She knew all of it, and none of it mattered, because knowledge without power is just another weight to carry. She scrubbed coffee rings as they discussed Asian markets, Latino demographics, and multilingual audiences, never realizing their invisible janitor was the expert they needed most. Irony doesn't pay rent. And now, time was running out. 72 hours. That's all she had before the eviction became real. The disability appeal for May? Denied. Again. By Monday they'd be out. Lucille spotted the envelope at 10:17 a.m. sharp. Maxwell's assistant dropped it on his desk. She was polishing the glass trophy case nearby when she caught the logo. Hangtech Innovations, China's semiconductor giant. And the postmark? Shanghai. Lucille Brooks noticed something most others wouldn't have. Just for a split second, Maxwell Grant's carefully composed face cracked with panic. By lunchtime, the executive floor had descended into organized chaos. Alerts popped up on screens, meetings were scheduled in a frenzy, and the translation team was urgently summoned. But then came the bombshell. Lin Chong, the lead translator, was overseas visiting family in Beijing. The only two other team members? Presenting at a conference in Tokyo. Meanwhile, Lucille moved quietly through the chaos, collecting trash bins with mechanical precision. She barely looked up when Grant stormed out of his office, waving the Mandarin document like a flag. Conference room. Now, he barked. Lucille should have clocked out. Her Friday shifts ended at noon, but something made her stay. Maybe curiosity. Maybe fate. Either way, she found herself lingering, wiping surfaces that were already spotless as the room filled with executives. Maxwell slammed the document on the table. Huang Technologies is offering us exclusive manufacturing rights for our new processor chip. This could double our market share in Asia. That's amazing news, ventured Derek Martin, glancing around in confusion. It would be, Grant snapped, if we could actually read the damn thing. It's in Mandarin. And our translation team? Unavailable. We've got 72 hours to respond before they hand the deal to Samsung. Lucille's pulse picked up. Even from a distance, she recognized several of the characters on the title page, semiconductor specs her father used to teach her. Can't we hire a service? Asked Priya Chandra. Grant let out a humorless laugh. Oh sure, and risk leaking our biggest advantage to every tech company from here to Shenzhen? Absolutely not. The executives shifted, uncomfortable. Lucille continued polishing the credenza, her movements silent, unnoticed. I'll make it worth someone's while, Grant added, now clearly performing for his audience. Translate this proposal, accurately, in 48 hours and you get my day's salary. That's $27,400. The room froze. Then as if on cue Derek laughed. The others followed nervously. Maybe the cleaning lady can take a shot at it, Grant added with a smirk, gesturing toward Lucille. Though I doubt they teach Mandarin at mop school. Laughter. Louder this time. Sharper. Lucille kept her gaze lowered, but her hand clenched around the rag. We'll break it up, Derek said. Use software for the first pass, then clean it up manually. Fine, Grant agreed. But remember, 72 hours. These documents don't leave this building. Full security protocols. As the team dispersed to collect their copies, Lucille noticed two things. One, the executives were already butchering basic translations, misreading the title page as a simple partnership when it clearly outlined exclusive manufacturing rights. And two, the deadline landed exactly when her eviction notice became final. Grant's salary could cover her mother's medications, the back rent, and legal fees. But exposing her skills? If she failed, she'd be out of a job. And if she succeeded, she'd threaten the egos of powerful men. Worse, what if the agreement echoed the same tactics that ruined her father? Would she really help the same company that had blacklisted Raphael Brooks and buried her family in debt? But if she didn't try, could she ever forgive herself? At exactly 1:43 a.m., standing under the flickering light in their cramped kitchenette, Lucille made her choice. Her mother slept restlessly in the makeshift bed across the room, the soft beeping of medical monitors echoing like a clock ticking down. On the counter, the eviction notice. Circled in red, the number 72. She wasn't going to reveal herself. Not yet. It was too dangerous. But maybe she could send a signal. A test. Saturday night, Lucille returned to Grant Enterprises. Her janitorial uniform granted her after-hours access without question. The guard waved her through with a tired smile. "Working overtime, huh?" "Yeah," Lucille answered in an exaggerated accent. "Mama needs medicine." She wheeled her cart down the empty executive corridor, straight into the conference room. The whiteboard was a mess of butchered Mandarin, technical jargon turned nonsense, idioms flattened into absurdity. Lucille winced. Then, with steady hands and her jade pen, she rewrote 3 key sections. Technical terms only someone trained would recognize. She signed it simply, Night Owl. The edits were precise, strategic. Just enough to showcase expertise, without revealing her full hand. Sunday morning. The bus started early. Lucille lingered outside the conference room, pushing her cart slowly, listening through the crack in the door. "Who the hell is Night Owl?" Maxwell asked. "Security confirms no unauthorized access," Derek replied. "Must be someone internal." Lucille watched as Derek studied the corrected whiteboard, then erased the signature. She heard his voice, calm, composed. "Actually, I did this section." Lucille's breath caught. "I've been studying Mandarin," Derek continued smoothly. "Didn't want to say anything until I was more fluent, but with the deadline." Maxwell clapped him on the back. "Finally, someone showing initiative. You're leading this project now." Lucille stepped away from the door. Her small victory stolen. Her anonymous work claimed. She couldn't afford anger. Not with just 48 hours left before the court hearing. That night, while her mother finally drifted into sleep, Lucille spread out the photographed documents on their kitchen table. She dug into the technical clauses, and what she found turned her stomach. The deal included a workforce optimization provision, cold, legalese for massive layoffs. If signed, the company would eliminate 300 factory jobs to cut costs. One of those factories? The same one where her mother's cousin and his entire family had just found steady work after arriving from abroad. "The only unusual clause," said Derek Marshall coolly, "is a production adjustment that loosely translates to restructured staffing allocations." In the corner, Lucy Carter's hands trembled as she poured fresh water into the pitcher. She knew exactly what that meant, and Derek was intentionally twisting it to hide the mass layoffs buried deep in the contract. "There's a section on something called the Luyang-Moxing process that's still unclear," he added, butchering the pronunciation so badly Lucy winced involuntarily. That's when Maxwell Grant turned, narrowing his eyes. Something bothering the coffee girl? All eyes locked on her. The room held its breath. 1 second. 2. Her entire future balanced on this moment. "Ludong emotion," she corrected softly, each tone precise and measured. "It means fluid modeling system, not whatever he just said." The room froze. Derek's expression darkened. "Excuse me?" Lucy straightened her back, shedding 5 years of invisibility with a single breath. 16 years of studying languages surged forward. "You've mistranslated multiple critical sections," she said, voice firm but controlled. "That term refers to semiconductor thermal management. It's a technical system, not a staffing strategy." Derek stepped forward. "How dare you?" But Maxwell Grant held up a hand. "You speak Mandarin?" he asked, studying her face for the first time as if she were something more than a smudge on the furniture. "Mandarin, Spanish, and English," Lucy replied, her heart racing. "I also read Japanese and Korean, though I'm not fully fluent." "She's lying," Derek spat. "She's just a janitor." "My name is Lucy Carter," she said, her voice gaining force. "My father, Michael Carter, built your Asian market division before he was let go in your so-called strategic restructuring. He taught me business Mandarin, technical terms, everything, since I was a kid." Recognition flickered in Maxwell's eyes. "Carter. I remember him." "This is ridiculous," Derek snapped. "She's probably a plant from a competitor." "You can check my credentials," Lucy said, pulling up her profile on her phone. "I translate professionally under the name Linguistic Bridge." She handed over her phone. "I have a 4.98 rating. Over 400 completed academic and technical translations, specializing in engineering and global business." Grant scrolled. Scan. Paused. It was all there. Client testimonials. Project samples. Verified credentials. "Your draft," Lucy continued, turning to the board, "doesn't mention anything about quality control protocols. And it completely obscures a key condition. Hangtech is requiring the termination of 300 plant workers." The room shifted. A few board members exchanged glances. One actually reached for the contract. "This is outrageous," Derek barked. You can't take her word for. Page 16, Lucy said without blinking. Paragraph 4. The characters clearly state, workforce optimization measures of no fewer than 300 positions must be executed within 60 days of contract initiation. I can read the rest verbatim if you'd like. Maxwell Grant stared at her. The surprise was gone now, replaced by calculation. You claim you can translate the entire thing accurately? I already have about 60% done, she said. I was leaving anonymous notes to help, the ones Mr. Marshall has been taking credit for. Derek turned beet red. Whispers rippled across the boardroom. You were Night Owl? Grant asked. She nodded. A slow grin spread across his face. Not kind. Not friendly. But impressed. And opportunistic. My offer still stands, he said. Finish the document by 9 a.m. tomorrow and you get my daily salary, $27,400. I want it in writing, Lucy said calmly. And I want my pen back. Your pen? Grant frowned. My Jade translator's pen. Mr. Marshall confiscated it yesterday and flagged it as suspicious. All eyes turned to Derek, who hesitated, then pulled the pen from his jacket. And one more thing, she added. I want a written contract guaranteeing my continued employment, no matter the outcome. And a confidentiality clause to protect my mother's immigration status. The room fell into stunned silence. She had just out-negotiated an entire boardroom. Grant gave her a long look, this time not as a cleaner, not even as an employee, but as an asset. Draft the agreement, he told his assistant, and get Miss Carter whatever she needs. As the jade pen was returned to her hand, Lucy felt the cool, familiar weight ground her. The countdown had reset. 18 hours to finish the translation. 36 hours until the eviction hearing. But for the first time in years, she wasn't invisible. Lucy spent the night in a small corner conference room, her only companions the glow of a monitor, vending machine coffee, and the scratch of her pen guiding her through page after page. She pushed past exhaustion. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, translating clauses most people wouldn't recognize in any language, much less in Mandarin. By 3 a.m. her vision blurred. The characters swam. She had reached 85% completion, cross-checking her version against the others' disastrous drafts. The truth lay somewhere in the middle. Not as rosy as Derek painted, but not as sinister as she first feared. The layoffs were suggested, not required. And buried deeper still, Hangtech had offered retraining support as part of the transition plan. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her neighbor who had taken her mother to the ER earlier. Doctors want to keep her another day. They need a $2,200 deposit. Lucy rubbed her temples. The numbers pounded in her mind. 30 hours until eviction. 6 hours until deadline. And for the first time, a sliver of hope. She nailed this. She could pay the hospital, negotiate with the landlord, maybe even find them housing closer to the clinic. Just for a second, she laid her head on her folded arms to rest. Then crash. Coffee splashed across her desk. And just like that, the final obstacle had arrived. If you had just 10 minutes to save your family's future, and the people standing in your way had already tried to destroy everything you had, would you give up? Or would you fight? Drop your answer in the comments below, and stay locked in because this chapter takes the story to a whole new level. Hot liquid splashed across Ava Morales' notes, seeping into her laptop's keyboard like an omen. She gasped. Pages turned to pulp. Oh, how clumsy of me, said Dean Whitaker, standing smugly over her, an empty coffee cup in hand. His smile was all teeth, nothing behind it but spite. I figured you looked exhausted. Thought I'd bring you something to keep you going. Ava leapt up, frantically dabbing at the spreading stain with tissues. Her screen flickered, then died. My translation, she choked out, panic rising. Relax, Dean said smoothly. I had the foresight to move your files to my secure drive. Sensitive material after all. Better safe than sorry. Her eyes locked on his. Give them back. I would, he said with a shrug. But whoops, some kind of corruption. Technical glitch, you know? These things happen. The files were gone. 4 hours before deadline, and Ava was back to zero. All she had left were stained pages and a brain fried by fatigue. As Dean sauntered toward the door, he tossed one last dagger over his shoulder. Just a thought, maybe it's time to bow out. One mistranslation could cost the company millions. Reeves is expecting perfection. That's when her phone buzzed again. This time it was her landlord. Eviction processor is coming tomorrow morning. Legal fast-tracked the case. The final hour had been moved up. Her deadline was now racing her eviction. She stared at her ruined notes, the lifeless screen, the walls around her closing in. Her mother still in the hospital. Her father's journal nearby, unopened. Dean had dismantled her shot at freedom. And for one terrible moment, Ava considered quitting, packing it in, disappearing into another dead-end job, leaving the fight behind. But then her phone rang. It was the hospital. Her mother's condition had worsened. They needed a payment authorization, immediately, to continue treatment. Ava didn't blink. She refused to lose again. Would you keep going? Or walk away before the cost became too high? Type, keep going, if you're still with Ava in this fight. Hand cramping around her jade pen, Ava began to rebuild the translation from scratch. One sentence at a time, pulling it from memory. 2 hours passed. Then 3. As dawn broke, exhaustion claimed her. She slumped over the desk. When she awoke, Robert Reeves stood above her. Dean stood behind him, arms crossed, smiling that same crooked smile. The clock said 8:47 a.m. 13 minutes until deadline. I figured as much, Reeves said, scanning the chaos around her, coffee-stained papers, scattered diagrams, her exhausted posture. Some people should stay in their place. Executives make deals. Housekeepers scrub floors. That's how the world works. He turned to his assistant. Draft her termination paperwork. Unauthorized access to sensitive documents. But we had an agreement, Ava said, forcing herself to stand. Contingent on delivery, Reeves interrupted coldly. And you didn't deliver. Call Translation Pro, he told Dean. Maybe we can salvage this by tonight. Ask Hang Tech for a deadline extension. Dean didn't even bother hiding his grin. Ava's dream was collapsing in real time. But just as Reeves turned to leave, something caught her eye. The edge of a worn notebook peeking out from her bag. Her father's journal. She'd brought it as a reference and forgotten it in the chaos. Wait, she said, suddenly sharp and clear. Reeves paused. We're done, he said, annoyed. My father worked on this exact technology, Ava continued, flipping open the notebook. The GX500 semiconductor platform. He was part of the original team before Hang Tech bought the patent. She held up page after page, diagrams, equations, test notes. Not available in any published materials. These specs aren't even mentioned in Hang Tech's proposal, she added. They assumed your company already understood the foundational science. Her voice grew stronger. I can finish this translation with a level of precision no outside agency could touch. Reeves studied her. Calculating. You've got 10 minutes, he said. Ava got to work, her father's journal opened beside her like a blueprint. The jade pen glided across the paper with certainty. Every technical nuance, every cultural reference that machine translators would butcher, she caught them all. By 8:58 a.m., she stepped into the boardroom. Executives were already gathered. The video monitor buzzed to life as the Hang Tech team appeared on screen. She set the completed translation down in front of Reeves. He glanced through it quickly, skeptical. The call is beginning, said his assistant. He looked between Ava and Dean. Maybe she should step out. But from the screen came a voice. We'd prefer Ms. Morales stayed, said Lin Huang, Hang Tech's CEO. The room went still. Beside him sat a man Ava hadn't expected. Mr. Park, her father's former engineering partner. Miss Morales, he said in Mandarin, smiling warmly. It's an honor. Your father spoke often of your gift for languages. Ava bowed slightly. The honor is mine, Mr. Park. I didn't know you were aware of where I was working. We weren't, said Lin Huang, switching to flawless English. Until our intelligence team discovered someone was translating our deliberately complex proposal, accurately. He smiled, and this time it was genuine. Only someone deeply familiar with both the language and the science could have done that. Reeves stared blankly. The Mandarin had flown past him like a freight train. Ava switched smoothly to English, her voice calm but commanding. Mr. Huang says the document's complexity was intentional. It was a test, to see whether Reeves Enterprises had retained the technical depth my father once helped build. Reeves, now visibly cautious, asked, Did we pass? Ava's eyes didn't waver. That depends, she said, then switched seamlessly back to Mandarin. She addressed Huang directly. The language surrounding labor restructuring, was that left vague on purpose? A faint smile curved across Huang's lips. Very sharp of you, Miss Morales. Yes. We've had concerns about your company's labor practices since your father's departure. The ambiguity in that section was deliberate, a test of your ethical compass. Ava turned back to the room, translating without pause. Huang Tech was evaluating your approach to workforce treatment. The layoffs were never mandatory. The wording was left open, for a reason. Dean Whitaker stepped forward, outraged. This is absurd. She's twisting everything. She's exposing your sabotage, Ava interrupted coldly. And then she tapped her phone. Security footage appeared on the screen. Dean, clearly visible, dumping coffee across her laptop and deleting files from her folder. The room went stone silent. Reeves's face turned to stone. Mr. Whitaker, he said in a low, deadly voice, you're fired. Security will see you out. Dean's protests rang out as he was escorted away, his voice echoing uselessly down the corridor. Then Huang's voice came again through the conference video, this time in Mandarin. We'll move forward with the agreement, on one condition. Miss Morales must personally oversee implementation as our cultural liaison. Ava's jade pen moved across the contract notes with absolute confidence. The ink dried in neat lines catching the light. Once a relic of her loss, it now marked her authority. They've made my involvement a condition of the deal, Ava said, translating calmly. They want to work with me directly. The room shifted. Everyone felt it. The balance of power had changed. Reeves took a breath, knowing he had no bargaining chips left. Fine, he said. Miss Morales will lead cultural operations. The video call ended with Huang offering his thanks, and a final comment. It's good to see Rafael Morales' legacy alive and well at Reeves Enterprises. As the room cleared, Reeves approached Ava. I misjudged you, he admitted. You're not the first, she replied. He handed her a signed check, $27,400, his own daily salary. But clearly, he said, you've earned far more than that. Moments later, as cameras rolled to document the contract signing, an email pinged in Ava's inbox. Huang Tech had issued an additional $50,000 signing bonus, designated specifically for cultural consultancy services provided by Ava Morales. Total in hand, $77,400. Enough to halt the eviction. Pay for her mother's care. Buy them time, dignity, and space to breathe. For the first time in years. Ava exhaled. And for the first time ever, she was seen. The office was hers now. Director of International Strategy, Ava Morales sat behind a polished walnut desk in a corner suite overlooking the skyline. The same skyline where she used to scrub floors in silence. Her new apartment, a two-bedroom near the best physical therapy center in the city, meant her mother now had the care she deserved. On the desk sat a crystal stand. Inside it, her jade pen. Beside it, a photo of her mother and one of her father. Two worlds. One woman who bridged them. Her first official act? Launching the Rafael Morales Scholarship Fund, offering education support to children of the company's cleaning, maintenance, and cafeteria workers. Her second? Conducting a full review of company layoff policies, and rehiring dozens of workers from her old community, this time with benefits, fair wages, and translated training materials in multiple languages. Since then, the contract she'd secured with Huang Tech had grown Reeves' Asian market share by 32% in just 2 quarters. Executives who used to ignore her now referred to her as Ms. Morales, with the same respect once reserved only for Reeves. Even Reeves himself had come around, though not out of principle. Ms. Morales, he'd said during the last shareholder meeting, has provided a perspective that's proven unexpectedly valuable. Ava had smirked. Translation? I was wrong about her. Just then, a gentle knock on her door. Your mother's therapist called, her assistant said. She's ahead of schedule on recovery. Gracias, Ava replied, savoring the chance to speak Spanish aloud without apology. Her phone chimed, board meeting in 15 minutes. 6 months ago, she had stood silently in that room, polishing fingerprints off glassware. Now she would walk in through the front door, head held high, ready to lead. Because once upon a time, she was invisible. Now, she was unstoppable. If Ava's journey inspired you, tell us in the comments. What would you do with a second chance? And don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share the story with someone who needs a reminder. Being overlooked doesn't mean being unworthy, because sometimes the janitor is the genius. Today, Ava Morales would present a bold plan projected to generate 450 new jobs and boost the company's valuation by 18%. Her fingers skimmed across the crisp edge of her presentation folder, but it was the framed clipping by her father's photo that made her pause. It was an old headline, one that had quietly reshaped her entire career. Reeves Enterprises stock soars on Asian partnership. New director credits immigrant father's legacy. The article praised Ava's meteoric rise, from janitor to executive leader, as an unlikely story of talent discovered in the unlikeliest place. Analysts called it a case study in modern corporate diversity. But what the article didn't mention, that she wasn't the only one. Thanks to Ava's Hidden Talents initiative, 28 more employees from maintenance and support roles had moved into new careers. Promotions once thought impossible were now real. Like the former security guard, an engineer from Nigeria, now leading infrastructure strategy. Or the cafeteria server fluent in 5 languages, now managing global HR integration. Or the help desk technician once overlooked, now designing the user interface for the company's flagship product. Let me ask you, what hidden talents have gone unnoticed in your workplace? As for Dean Whitaker, he'd become a cautionary tale. After his sabotage attempt went public, no tech firm would touch him. Last Ava heard, he was teaching business communication at a local community college, lecturing to the very kinds of people he once dismissed. The irony wasn't lost on her. Reeves, meanwhile, hadn't changed fundamentally. He was still driven by profit, not principle, but he had learned to recognize potential, even if it came wrapped in a janitor's uniform. He still called Ava's journey lightning in a bottle, as though her success was a fluke, rather than the result of systemic change. But that was okay. His words mattered less than his actions, and those actions had started reshaping lives. And that's what mattered. As Ava walked through the company halls toward the boardroom, employees called out to her by name. Some in English, others in Spanish, a few in Mandarin. Each greeting was a bridge, a small connection between worlds. Today she no longer hid her heritage. The jade pen, once tucked away in secrecy, now clipped to her blazer as a symbol of pride and precision. When she entered the boardroom, all the members stood. The respect still caught her off guard. She took her place, looking at the room not with intimidation, but with conviction. In her mind, she saw her mother, now enrolled in online engineering courses. She saw the cleaning team who now looked her in the eye instead of past her. Visibility came with pressure, with scrutiny, with responsibility. But invisibility? That had come with something far worse, wasted potential. Good morning, Ava began, speaking in 3 languages, each one received with a respectful nod. Today we'll explore how embracing diverse perspectives can change more than company culture. It can drive measurable success. She clicked the first slide. 32% increase in market share. 24% improvement in employee retention. Numbers speak every language, especially in boardrooms. Talent, she continued, doesn't always arrive in the packaging we expect. But companies that recognize it, regardless of the wrapping, don't just innovate. They lead. Her jade pen moved confidently across her notes, anchoring her to a legacy built not on privilege but on perseverance. She was no longer building bridges. She was paving highways. Have you ever been underestimated? Was there a moment when your true value finally came to light, just like Ava's? Tell us in the comments. We want to hear your transformation, from invisible to invaluable. And if this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to Beat Stories for more powerful narratives like this one. Hit that like button if someone ever doubted you, and you prove them wrong. And turn on notifications so you never miss a story that could change your outlook, or your life. Because your next chapter? It's one bold decision away. Just like Ava's was.